Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Leadership Lounge. My name is Tasneem Ali, and I'm joined by my fellow two leadership coaches, Alison and Sophia Carlson. Today, we're going to talk about micromanagement and the effects of it on employee performance. Now, what is micromanagement? Micromanagement is essentially it's a management style whereby you control the employee's performance and the output in order to serve you well. So let's begin by exploring the first question, which is, why do people actually micromanage? Alison, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a diverse topic. So I guess I see three different reasons for people why they micromanage. So the first one might be maybe you're being micromanaged because you're new to the job, or you're not quite getting fast enough up to speed, or you just need a little bit of a helping hand. So a manager might feel as though they need to micromanage from that regard. But that's usually a different conversation. That might involve HR, that might involve like a program and success points to analyze. So that's a non-toxic form of micromanagement. Then there might be a more toxic form, which is kind of micromanagement coming from trust issues. If somebody thinks, everybody else is incompetent, no one else can do the job as good as I can, so I need to stomp around and do everybody's work for them. That's a much more toxic form of micromanagement. And I've seen that in action and it just ruins teams. Absolutely. And I mean, the third type, I think this is much more common, and it's a really natural reaction for new leaders as well. Really, when you sort of go from being the go-to person on a particular topic to managing people and teams, you can't be the go-to person on everybody else's topic as well. So you need to really switch your mindset and say, right, instead of being the go-to person for this topic, I'm going to build a team of go-to people. And it's making that mindset switch. It can be really, really difficult. So it's sort of going from, like you want to be the gatekeeper of the what instead of the master of the how. So, just take a bigger picture of the what and let others work out the how. And it's that mindset shift that can be really difficult. What do you think, Tasneem?
I agree with you. I think that all 3 points are extremely valid. I think that another reason that people micromanage, it's all about control. It's about the ability to let go. So it's probably your third point where you said that, when actually people shift roles and when they have responsibility of leading rather than doing, it is perhaps that inbuilt fear that nobody can do it as well as I can. I also think that there's actually, while the micromanagement is always about the manager and the inability to let go of control, what I've seen in my experience is that one of the other areas where somebody has to be micromanaged is because they're not performing well. So while the manager might not want to micromanage, it is actually the need of day-to-day to ensure that the employee performs to the expectations of the business. And while I think the second bit is more, which is around the employee, the first bit is always around the person and the management style.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, I do think that, especially talking about maybe more unexperienced managers, you mentioned it as well, that when you think that there is an expectation on you to be able to shadow everything that your team is doing, you come from a place where you have been the specialist or the go-to person, and now you think that you still need to be that person who knows what everything that is going on and what everyone is doing, and that you are going to be blamed for all the details that all your team members are not delivering on. But that can also come from above. And this I have experienced myself, that I had a manager in the past who expected me as a manager to be able to shadow all my team members. And that was not the style I wanted to have. But I saw that it was always somebody kind of micromanaging me to ensure that I was micromanaging my people. And nothing good comes out of that, right? But so I think that it's a lot of that kind of still old-fashioned thinking of that people are not working unless we are breathing them in the neck. So yeah, that's really toxic.
Yeah, I think we've had a few very similar experiences there, Sophia, unfortunately. So speaking of which, I mean, what do you guys think are the effects of micromanagement? So the effects on the people being micromanaged, as well as the effects on the managers doing the micromanaging. Sophia, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this thing of not being able to be creative and not being able to be fully productive because you're always filtering all your work through that micromanager's brain. This is also something I've experienced. I actually left a team in the past where I had a very nice manager. However, she was always putting her final touch on everything that I was writing and producing. And she didn't necessarily make it better, but she was making it her way, which made me lose my own creativity. Why should I be creative and do things my way and think outside of the box if I know that she will always have her way of doing things? And that is also a way of micromanaging, that you as a manager think that you need to be the one who kind of form and shape everything before it's delivered. And what happens to your team when you do that is that so people will stop being creative. They will not be efficient at all because they will always think, what would my manager do? And maybe you are not at all using the same style as working as your manager. So you will then lose your efficiency and your way of, and I mean, we need different types of people on the team, right? That's why we have diversified teams. So you're just losing productivity, employee engagement, and everything with that type of style. What do you think, Tasneem? What have you seen?
I mean, I've had multiple rounds of being micromanaged. And I think that whenever I look back to those times, I think for me, it was about lack of trust that, well, I'll start with lack of being insecure. I think that when I look back at one of the first managers I had, I think she was very insecure about her own place in the organization and her own performance. And I think she viewed, maybe rightly so at times, that my output was a direct result. Like there was, it was a direct result of how she is performing, which is sort of untrue. And hence this need to almost micromanage every single step. And as you said, changing things from active voice to passive voice, because, you want to add your touch and feel important enough. So I think that the effects of that can be when the person is insecure, they need to control. But then how the employee feels is that you don't trust me to do the job that you've hired me to do. And while other people might see you and say you're doing great work, if your manager itself ensures that you always feel like you're not trusted, you eventually lose confidence. And unfortunately, this can happen to people who are most junior to people who are very senior as well. And it's both ways. It's you feel like you're not trusted. It's the person's insecurity in getting a job done, which directly impacts you. And ultimately, what will happen if that micromanagement doesn't go away? You'll probably end up losing a very valuable employee, because I think in today's day and time, nobody tolerates this for longer periods, especially if they're high performers. They just won't. So ultimately, I think the business just, loses a great employee.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. I mean, I had years of not being micromanaged, and then, I was doing really, really well. I was confident. I didn't really experience imposter syndrome, anything like that. And then as soon as I came up against a micromanager, at first it was frustrating. And I thought, what on earth is going on here? This is ridiculous. They're expecting me to micromanage my people because they're micromanaging me. So it was like, what can I do to show this person that I'm trustworthy, that I know what I'm doing? I was trying all these different things and none of them were working because it wasn't about me, I don't think. and then, as you say, Tasneem, like your confidence just starts to really spiral downwards and you get this self-doubt and saying, well, maybe I am doing a bad job. Maybe I do need to be micromanaged. Like, rationally that you don't, but, you just lose this confidence. And that's when you lose your vision and creativity, as you were saying, Sophia. And, that is no place to grow. That is no place for development. You can't be a leader yourself. You can't grow into a leader yourself if somebody is ticking off every single thing that you're doing. So, it's really very destructive for people who are being micromanaged, and people who are micromanaging, like, that's exhausting. Maybe you can do it for 1 or 2 people if you're managing them, but if your team grows to 10 or 20 people or 100 people, you can't know every single detail about what every single one of them is doing. So you will get absolute burnout. And usually you can guarantee that your manager above you doesn't want that either. They don't want to know all the nitty-gritty details. They don't want to hear all the stories about X, Y, and Z. They have bigger fish to fry, and they want you to be frying bigger fish at the same time as well. So, it's quite destructive on both people who are doing it and receiving it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned it now, Alison, that you were trying all types of tricks then to find your way out of it. So what are the things that we can do when we are being micromanaged? How can we cope being in that situation? Like, nothing's going to change, right? We can't change that micromanager, but what can we do ourselves? So what are those tricks? What did you try, Alison?
I mean, you have to have a conversation with the person, even though it could be scary. You have to have a conversation with the person to find out why they're doing it. That it might be that you're not quite getting it, you're not quite up to scratch, and you need to have that conversation and set some parameters around it. And say, well, this is how, okay, that's fair enough, but this is how it's making me feel in the meantime. It's not working for me. This is not helping me perform better. So what can we do to help me perform better? Because nobody goes to work to do a crappy job. Let's be honest here. So that's one conversation that you can have. But in all honesty, don't change to fit into a toxic work environment. I realized in the end that I would have to become a micromanager myself to fit in with this micromanaging boss. And I just had to draw the line and I got out of there. That's what I had to do. It's not worth it. Absolutely not worth it.
What do you say, Tasneem? What are the things you can do to cope?
I'll build on what Alison said. I think that absolutely have that conversation once you see that there is a trend, like there is a pattern that you've picked up, that you are being micromanaged. And as soon as you've established that, I think have that conversation. And probably the way to overcome is not to think that I need to work harder. So women tend to do that. I just need to prove myself a little bit more. Let me find my way of, how do I adjust to meet my manager's expectation? So don't sit in your corner, go have that conversation, but ask the manager, what are your expectations? How am I not delivering on it? Where is the gap? And how can I address it? Now, everything's very concrete, it's measurable. And when you bring that awareness, and perhaps you are performing at that level, it'll give an opportunity for the manager to take a step back and assess their own behavior. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, put the light on it. Something that helps me is to really meet that micromanager where they are and trying to understand why they are doing it. And I would say that most of this comes from a place of fear, or that they need something, and to give them then something so that they can feel less fear, or that you can meet their needs. So those fears that these micromanagers are having is the fear of losing control, of course, and then the fear of failure and the fear of not being able to deliver and living up to their stakeholders. So there's a client who have asked them for something, or there's a manager above them. So when you can better understand the place where they are coming from and they are really scared of failing themselves, you can have either a discussion around that or meet them on those specific needs. So, for example, really showing that that they can depend upon you, that they can trust you. It can still be exhausting. And I mean, Alison, you said it. I mean, don't adapt to this toxic work environment. And I totally agree with that. But maybe sometimes you are working with someone who's just sometimes a micromanager, or who has tendencies of micromanaging. And there you can help them by showing them that they can trust you, that you are on their team, and that you will deliver. And over time, that trust can be created so that they can take a step back on their micromanagement. So yeah, that's something that at least helps me to better understand the micromanager so that I don't take it personal. Okay, we have reached the 15 minutes. This was so interesting. Micromanagement is a topic that engages everyone, and I'm sure that our viewers as well have a lot of things to say about it. And everyone has a story. Everyone has experienced micromanagement, and maybe there are some recovering micromanagers out there as well. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. We are coming back on Friday again. So if you have a specific topic on leadership that you want to talk about, or that you want us to talk about, send in your questions or come with suggestions, and we will be really, really happy to meet your wishes. So see you on next Friday again, and we wish you a happy Easter.
Thanks, everyone.